During the 2024 Paris Olympics, Guerschon Yabusele earned himself an NBA contract by doing this.
Lovely little dummy, Yabusele!
At least that's what he thinks, and as much as that could be true, it really just symbolized Yabusele's growth during his years in Europe. In this video, I will go through the success stories of players who managed to earn themselves a second chance in the NBA after playing in Europe. Now, I obviously don't think it was just about that one dunk. Yabusele had a fantastic Olympics performance overall, finishing second in team scoring just behind Wembanyama with 14 points per game. Most notably, he turned it up in the knockout round, scoring 22 against Canada, 17 against Germany, and 20 in the final versus the US. Soon after the Olympics, Yabusele signed with the 76ers, making his return to the NBA after 5 years in Europe. As you may recall, Dancing Beer's early NBA career didn't go quite as planned. Drafted 16th overall by the Boston Celtics in 2016, Yabusele struggled to earn minutes and was waived in 2019 after averaging just 2.3 points and shooting around 32% from deep in limited appearances. And that's when Yabusele had to resort back to where he came from, Europe. First with Asvel Villeurbanne in home country France, where he had a successful season and after it attracted the attention of Real Madrid, which is one of the top clubs in the EuroLeague. In the 3 EuroLeague seasons with Real, Yabusele won a championship while averaging 10.5 points, 4 rebounds, and most importantly, shot an impressive 42% from 3-point range, solidifying himself as a versatile forward and earning his way back to the league. Next up is someone who I made a separate video about, as Dante Exum's comeback story is just that remarkable. I'm leaving a link to that video in the description below, but here's the summarized version. Dante's career in the NBA was derailed by injuries. Drafted 5th overall by the Utah Jazz in 2014, his potential was clear, but the multiple ACL tears, shoulder injuries, and setbacks left him sidelined for long stretches. By 2021, after stints with the Jazz and the Cleveland Cavaliers, his NBA career seemed to be fading. Then in December of 2021, Exum signed with FC Barcelona, where his EuroLeague run began. He showed glimpses of athletic greatness in that half a season with Barca, but he really turned it up in the following season. Exum not only was averaging 13.2 points, 2.7 assists, and 2.5 rebounds, but was also shooting at 42% from 3, which was a significant improvement from his NBA days. Besides that, he was a crucial part of that great run Partizan had in the playoffs, and if not for the craziest fight in the EuroLeague history, who knows how it would have ended in the series against the eventual champions that year, Real Madrid. And for those paying attention, yes, I did put Dante right after Yabusele in this list. Yeah, that's actually both of them right here, with Yabusele body slamming Exum. Anyways, in 2023, Exum made his NBA comeback with the Dallas Mavericks, marking a full circle moment for a player whose potential once seemed lost to injuries. Next up is another former Partizan player, PJ Dozier. After going undrafted and spending the first 2 years in the league on two-way contracts, PJ found his place in Denver and actually had some moments there, but injuries derailed his trajectory. He got traded during his 3rd year, then waived before even playing for Orlando, and finally tried his luck with a couple of 10-day contracts. So Dozier found himself on the outside looking in and took his talents overseas. Like Exum, Dozier signed with Partizan Belgrade just a year later in 2023. To be more precise, he was signed as a sort of replacement for Exum. PJ's stint there wasn't a straight-up success right away. Adjusting to the European way of basketball took some time, but Dozier eventually picked it up, averaging solid numbers in the EuroLeague and thriving as a two-way player. Under the legendary coach Željko Obradović, his defensive versatility and playmaking definitely improved. The following season, in 2024, the Minnesota Timberwolves brought him back to the NBA. Now he's fighting for rotation minutes and trying to make a case for himself to stick around. Now this next one is a bit tricky because the European experience was sort of a last resort for this guy. I'm talking about Kevin Porter Jr., who after the domestic assault and harassment charges was traded by the Houston Rockets and waived by the OKC. Before all this off-the-court trouble, level, KPJ had established himself as one of the league's most promising young guards. Most impressively, he became the youngest to achieve a 50-point game with 10 assists. But as I just mentioned, the behavioral issues got him out of the league before he could even step foot on the court last year. For the remainder of the 23-24 season, Porter found a temporary home with PAOK Thessaloniki, who were only playing in the Greek domestic league. In Greece, he played only 6 games in total, but averaged an impressive 22 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 steals per game. It's hard to claim it was his success in Greece that helped him rebuild his stocks, but the Los Angeles Clippers gave him another shot in the NBA this season. Since his return, Porter has been contributing off the bench in the preseason, and hopefully his time in Europe, away from all the noise, will help him stay out of trouble in the future. Before I get into the examples of the past, let me remind you of the present. Yes, the NBA season has finally started, and if you want to watch all the games live or on demand in Europe, I recommend NBA League Pass. Living in the European time zone, I find it pretty much impossible to watch the NBA games live, if I want to function as a human being the next day, that is. So what League Pass allows me to do is to hide all the scores and watch the games in the morning instead, skipping all the annoying stoppages, commercial breaks, or timeouts, let me add. It is the only way you should be watching NBA games, so follow the link in the description and try League Pass for free. Now let's look at some OGs who paved the way for the guys I talked about prior. Josh Childress set the precedent for NBA players heading to Europe in the prime of their careers. After being drafted 6th overall by Atlanta in 2004, Childress put up solid numbers as a 6th man for the Hawks. But then he made a bold move in 2008 by signing a lucrative deal with Olympiacos in Greece. He became one of the first major NBA players to take this route, signing a 3-year, $20 million contract with the Greek team, which when adjusted to tax breaks is about $32.5 million with an NBA team in 2008. That's insane. After a solid rookie season in Piraeus, Childress set himself up for an incredible sophomore year, almost doubling his production. He put up 15 points and 5 rebounds in his second EuroLeague season, which let me tell you is like 25 and 10 in the NBA. Childress, alongside other stars, helped Olympiacos reach the EuroLeague final, where they came up short against Barcelona. And this success overseas didn't go unnoticed, as by 2010 he was back in the NBA with the Phoenix Suns. Though his second NBA stint wasn't as impactful, Childress paved the way for other players to see Europe as a viable career path. Another guy who was on that legendary 09-10 Olympiacos roster was Linas Kleiza. Before Olympiacos, Kleiza hadn't played in Europe professionally. Drafted 27th overall by the Denver Nuggets in 2005, he became known as a reliable scorer off the bench, but after the 4 seasons there, he never quite broke out as a star in the NBA. I guess it ain't easy when you have Melo in your position. So Kleiza looked back at the continent he was from, and his time in Greece was nothing short of transformative. Kleiza led the EuroLeague in scoring during the 2009-10 season, averaging 17 points per game and earning the Alfonso Ford Trophy as the league's top scorer. His impressive performances, like the 19 points in 6 minutes for example, raised his stocks exponentially. By 2010, the Toronto Raptors signed him back to the NBA on a 4-year deal. While injuries limited his impact upon returning, Kleiza showed that his time in Europe was more than just a detour. It was a career-redefining period that not only solidified his place as one of the best Lithuanian players of his generation, but also showed how it's possible to earn a much more significant NBA contract through Europe. Finally, I think Anthony Parker's career is the perfect example of a player finding stardom in Europe and then translating that success back to the NBA. After struggling to find a consistent role in his first few NBA seasons with the 76ers and Magic, Parker went to Maccabi Tel Aviv in Israel. He became an absolute EuroLeague legend there, winning multiple championships, earning EuroLeague MVP honors, and to this day he's still being considered as one of the league's GOATs. In the 4 seasons he spent with Maccabi, he averaged 16 points, 6 rebounds, and 3.5 assists. More importantly, Maccabi had a championship repeat, and Parker was at the forefront of it. This level of dominance in Europe Europe earned him a second shot in the NBA, and he signed with the Toronto Raptors in 2006. This time around, Parker was much more mature and ready, becoming a key player for the Raptors. At the end of his career, he joined the Cleveland Cavaliers, enjoying a single season with LeBron and a couple of miserable ones post LeBron's move to the Heat. Now, not everyone who goes to Europe and plays there ends up returning to the NBA full-time. This is gonna be the only honorable mention I'm gonna make, and it's a guy who chose to stay in Europe despite NBA interest. That's Mike James, who actually started his career in Europe, then had a brief run with the Suns and Pelicans in 2017-18, but then came back to Europe for a few years. In 2021, after a couple more dominant EuroLeague seasons, he joined the Brooklyn Nets with KD, Harden, and Kyrie. Despite showing flashes of greatness off the bench, James opted to stay in Europe, where he had a guaranteed star role. Since then, he has become the EuroLeague's all-time top scorer and keeps adding to that record to this day. There are a couple of other names who couldn't find themselves a guaranteed spot in the NBA, played in Europe, then returned to the NBA, but they either got waived too quickly or returned back to Europe not long after, so they won't be making this list. So, here's the reality. The road back to the NBA doesn't have to be through the G League or by waiting around for a 10-day contract. Europe has become a legitimate proving ground for players to revive their NBA careers. At the same time, staying to play in the EuroLeague actually is not that bad either, as it gives a platform for some borderline NBA guys to become stars in Europe and get as good, if not better, money. So I guess next time you see an NBA player move to Europe, don't count them out too soon, cause they might just come back better. If I missed any other examples that you thought of, make sure to drop them in the comments below. Just before I go, make sure to check out our second channel where we exclusively talk about the NBA. I'll put the link right here. As always, I would appreciate a like on this video, a subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one.